Hello guys, so in this quick Affinity Designer tutorial, I'll show you the process of how I create thumbnails for my recording. So this is a tutorial I created for Substance Painter, and I'll show you how I create thumbnails for this project so that I'll have a nice view when I jump into YouTube or when I upload this video. So I'll first fire up Affinity Designer. And once that has loaded, so it's actually a good idea to kind of like take a look at what I want to see here. So this is the final kind of results I'm going to get when you create this material design or texture, or you want the final, whoever is viewing it to actually see what they're going to create. And also, since this is a rust material, I want to imply this rust in the design as well. So what I'll do is to go to the snipping tool. If you're using Windows, you can easily find your snipping tool, and I'll just drag an area like here or here, and I'll just save this. So I'll go to File, Save As, and I'll save this somewhere. So I've created a folder called Painter, and it's under Rust 2. I'll just call this Grab 2, just a screen grab 2. And what I also like to do is to grab the entire screen. So you can use the function and print screen option, or you could just snip the screen. So what I'll do is I think I'll just snip it this time around since I've snipped. So I'll click on the snipping tool, and once it opens up, I'll click on New, and I'll just drag over here and snip the entire screen. And I'll go to File, Save As, and I'll call this screen underscore snip. And also mind where you put that so that you can easily find access to that project. And I'm actually done with this. So this is the Affinity Designer interface. So let's create a new project. So I'm going to go to File. I'm going to go to New. And right here, these are my presets. I'm using a 1080p preset. That's a 1920 by 1080 pixel document. But you can also go to Print and select any of these, or you can modify any print. For instance, if I click on A4 and I go over here and I change this to pixels, it's actually turned to custom. So I can just do 1980 by 1080. And here, when it's custom, I'll set this to the orientation, to have a layout orientation. And I'll click on this custom right here, and it's going to create something called unnamed here. So I'll just right click this unnamed and say rename preset, and I'll just call this YouTube 1080, and I click OK. So that means I have a preset of it's supposed to be 1920. Sorry, I made that mistake. So we could delete that preset and recreate it, or we could just go here and fix this. I'll just say 1920. It's actually 1920 by 1080, and I'm just going to click on this, and it says cannot add the preset. This preset already exists, so what I can do is to delete the preset, but you get the idea. So what I'll do is to click on this one that I call 1080p, and this will create a 1080p HD resolution, window size and width. So next I'll head over here to the place image tool and click on place image, and I'll now go over to that folder where I have that. So I called it's in my painter file, because that's where I keep the painter projects. So that's why sometimes it helps to organize this. It's trying to evade me. Okay, substance projects, painter, and here I called it Rust 2, I guess, and this is the screen snip. So I'll just open this and click on this and just drag this to place this in this location right here and this position. So I'll just place it right here to have this object in this location. So now that I've placed this object here, this image here, what I also want to do is to place that little snip, because I want to use that as an overlay somehow. So I'll just click on place image again, and I'll just grab these two and just place them and click over here and click over here as well. So I have these two images, and I'll just go to layers. Now your user interface might be different from mine, so what I want you to do right now, if you want to reset it, I'll just go ahead and reset it. So I'm going to go to Studio, and down here I'll just say Reset Studio, and most likely this is how your studio interface will be. You have your layers by the right and your navigator by the bottom. I'm left-handed, so sometimes I just like having the UI icons on this side, on the left side. So I'll click on the layers tab, left click and hold and just drag it over here, and I'll just arrange this with the assets. So I don't even want the assets and the appearance, so what I'll do is go to window, go to view, studio, and click on appearance to deselect it, studio assets to deselect that. So I just want to have this specified asset over here. So once I have these assets in this section, what I'm going to do is to let's hide these because I'm not ready to use them yet, and I'll kind of lock the base layer just to make sure that we have this layer locked like so. So the first, I want to start with the title for the tutorial, but I'll need a nice dark background. So what I'll do is to go over here to the rectangle tool, and let's create a nice rectangle like so, and I'll set the fill to black. So again, if you want these color swatches, you can actually see this in swatches, but if you're on color and you're not seeing the color wheel, you have to click on this drop down menu. It might actually be on sliders, but if you want the color wheel, just click on wheel and it will bring out the color wheel for you. So what I also want to do is to just duplicate this. I'll do Ctrl J to duplicate this, and I'll just hold shift and just drag this down a bit, and I'll just reduce the size. So basically I want the text to be overlaid here. So next I'm going to click on the text tool, so I'll click on the frame text tool, and I'll just drag a little frame right here. So it's actually black, so let's click the font color and let's set the font color to white. So let's double click and let's just say create a rusty smart material. So basically this is the text, and it's actually overflowing. I don't want it to overflow. I'll just drag this over here, and let's go back to our rectangle and click on this and just drag this over here. So create a rusty smart material. So let's go back here and let's click on this. Let's increase the font size a little bit. Let's try, yeah, I like this 24. And what I want to do now, you can actually see it's trying to overlap. I'll set this to bold, and what I'm going to do is to cut out this next section of the text, and I'll just duplicate this text. So I'll use Ctrl J to duplicate it, and where it says create a rusty, I'm going to select that and I'll paste the smart material. It's making me dizzy, so I'll select the text tool, click on the move tool or press V for a shortcut, and then drag this under here. So create a rusty smart material. So I'll actually kind of like reduce this a little bit. Let's set this to 16, and I'll set this to, I believe it's on bold already. Okay, it's not on bold. So I've set this to 15, and let's select this layer and just increase this right here. So we have create a rusty smart material. Now everything is starting to get kind of like crowded over here. So I'll select this, hold on, Control, select this text. I'll select the rectangle and the other rectangle, and I'll press Ctrl G to group that. So I'll just call that text and background. So I'll do text and background. So I have the text and background, and the cool thing is once I've grouped them, I can press V and kind of like move them any position I want. I think this is a great position to have this. But here's what I want to do. This part where it says rusty, what I want to do is to make sure that I kind of like have this rust bleed through this, you know, text right here, just to add that effect. So what I'm going to do is to pick one of these. I'll just pick this one. Yeah, I like this one. So I'll just drag that and kind of like put this underneath, so we can actually see it's underneath this guy. So I'll just open this and use the V and drag this over here, and what we've actually done is to create a nice little mask. We can even add a nice effect like this to show that that rusty word halfway, or we can even set this. So what I just did is to create a mask and clip this shape to this text. So it's not it's just straightforward, I first did that by clicking the object and dragging it towards the right a bit and release. Once we do that, it's going to create a mask, and we're actually clipping this guy right here. And also what I like to do is to add a little color to this text to make it kind of like stand out. So here what I'll do is to use a bright cyan color. So with this selected, I'll just go over here to the color wheel and just click a nice little pink color. So also I like to use the navigator. So I'll click on the navigator and just drag it and float it around here. So it will give us a final kind of like a window view of what we're doing and where we are, and we can just see this navigator thumbnail and see what we are working with. Also, you can easily use it to zoom out sections and move around your design. So I think I kind of like this. So what I'll do is to add a little effect on these. So I'll click on this one and just drag this a little bit just to make it like so. I'll click on this background as well, and what I'd like to do is to let's duplicate this background. So here I'll press Ctrl J to duplicate this, and I'll hold down Shift just to drag it a little bit to the top. And what I'll do is just lower the opacity slightly. And now what we're actually seeing here, it's giving it this nice backdroppy vibe to it. You can actually see it right here. So we have this nice backdrop. In fact, what I'm even going to do is to just rotate that a little bit of tilt, and then drag this down. If you want to make this kind of polygonal, what you can do is to go over here to the node tool and select this object, select the object and go to the node tool. And what you can do is to click convert to curves. So this is a curve now. What we can do is to just kind of like move this edge a little bit like so. So we can just tilt that. So let's do the same thing with the one above. So I'm going to go over here and click on this guy and use the move tool just to move it up a little bit like so. I'll duplicate it by pressing Ctrl J. I'll just move it downwards a bit. And we can even use another style. We can use overlay, and we can turn down the opacity of that layer. And what we can do is to use, you can even use the fill. So let's go to the fill, and we can add that same kind of color we have right here. So I'll just use a cyanic, pinkish, purplish kind of color just to make this stand out. And also what I'll do is I'll just lower that opacity, just lower it so down so it's actually there. We can see it right there. So here, so what's happening right now is that my text is something's happening to my text. It's actually dimming it. So let's see, this is so I made the mistake and dimmed my text. So sorry about that. So what I'll do is to click on this and let's make this bright so it's actually stands out. And let's select this. So this is good, but I just want to move this up. Now you can see we're having an issue trying to select this one easily as well. So what we can do is also create a group for the base selection as well. So I'll just do Ctrl J and I'll just call this the bottom text. And by doing that, we can easily hide it, and we can press V and move things around. Right, so we created a layer for this, and we can also create a layer for this one as well, and we have that group, and we can move everything around without causing any problems or destroying anything. And I'd like to twist this for my upper text. I'd like to just rotate this a little bit like so, and I'll convert it to curves and use the node tool to just move this edge over here and move this one over here like that as well, just to make it super awesome. We can also add a point and move that point like so, and I think this is super fine. So I'll leave it like this. Also, if you don't like sharp edges because it looks super sharp, what we can actually do is to let's select it and click with the node tool, click on a point, and what you can do is go over here and convert to smooth, and this should convert the edge to a smooth point. So that's how we can convert that edge to a smooth edge, and you can actually see we can actually have something much more organic. So I'll just undo that and leave it like that. So sorry about that, guys. I'm just going to delete this. Alright, so that's super, and I kind of like don't like how it's I kind of like made it too much, so I'll just leave it like this. Again, it's just subjective, it's how you want to actually see it, so I'll just leave it like this. And also for the smart material, I'll just use the last three words and use the eyedropper and select this. Now it's selecting the entire thing. I just want to change the color of these last three words, so I'll just go back here and double click on that and just select the, oh, am I on the right layer? Okay, good. So I double clicked on the text layer, and let's change this like so. So that's going to be it for the text layer. So what I also like to do is to create a nice, background for everything. So I'll just group this, and I'll just call this set 1. So this has our background and everything. So I like to create another set just to add some nice, gradient right here. And in fact, what we're going to do is to add some nice fade to this text right here. So let's see this guy. Let's open it. And our second group we call the bottom text. What I'll do is open the bottom text and click on the rectangle, and I'll click on this transparency tool, and what this is going to do is to add some nice transparency. So I'll just do it this way, and I can always rotate this. So I'm going to rotate the gradient like so, and we can actually position this any way we want. I'll set it over here, and you can basically see what it's doing. So it's creating a nice fade, a transitional fade from left to right. I'll just drag this over here and just make it slightly like so. And let's do that for this group right here. So we have the text and background. So let's do the same thing here. I'll just use the transparency tool and just drag this over here and just make it super nice like that. And I think we're done. I don't want to spend too much time on this one. So next, what I'm going to do is to add a little fade like so from the bottom. So I'll just create a shape, and let's add the shape like so. It's going to cover the whole thing. I'll make it a very dark value, and what I'll do is to add a layer effect to this shape. So I'll go to the FX, and I'll turn on the Gaussian blur and kind of like blur out this edge a little bit, and we can set it to a very like super bright color. We will reduce that opacity like so. So I'll use this yellowish color, and what I'll do is to use the transparency tool and just kind of like add this slightly from the bottom to indicate some kind of like halo, kind of like nice glow to it. And I'll just duplicate this using Ctrl J and duplicate it one more time. And what I'll do is to take this one and I'll move this to the top and kind of like rotate it. So I'll go over here and rotate this holding shift, and I'll just use shift to drag this down here, and I'll set this to a kind of like dark color. And what I'll do is to lower down the opacity as well. Just lower down this opacity and over these two. So I'll hold Control and click, press Ctrl G, and I'll call this our bottom halo like so. I think 50 is super low, so I'll just leave this a bit. And basically I'm trying to create this vignette effect on this shape so that the focus is on the center of this object. And to do that, let's add another shape. So I'll add this circular shape, make it quite big, and I'll just put it right here in the center. And what I'll do is to click on the gradient tool, and for the fill I'll create a radial fill like so. Just make it super big like that, and we can lower down the opacity as well. So basically it's kind of like there, but you know, it's like focusing on this guy, right? So that's also another way to create a kind of like nice little spot. Now I'm going to make this barely visible. I'm going to make it barely visible, and for the fill, I think I should use a very dark value for this, and then it's going to go from this to a kind of like pinkish color, like so. I think that's super fine. So it's actually still noticeable, so I'll just lower this to about half that amount. So I'll set this to like I believe I'm on the wrong layer. Okay, good. So this is actually quite low, so I'll still set this to say 4. And yeah, that's super great. The reason why I'm lowering this is because I'm going to add a basically a final effect around all this. Now the software I'm using is Substance Painter, and the icon is just a green dark background with the letters P and T. So I think it's nice to have the logo of the software so everyone knows it's Substance 3D Painter I used to create this design. So let me just quickly create that design. So all these, I'm going to click on these 3, press Ctrl G, and I'll call them effects, like so. So I have one at the top, have one at the bottom, and we have this nice little kind of like halo around this guy. So let's quickly create that. I'll use a rounded rectangle tool. Click and just drag that rounded rectangle tool, and I'll use a green color, make it slightly dark, like so. And next I'm going to create a text layer, so I'll click on the frame text tool and just create the letter P and select it. Increase the font size to like say 36 is fine, and I'll use a very light if I look at that, it's still green, so I'll go over here. Yeah, I think this green is it's fine. And again, we can increase the size. Let me just make this to let's set this to yeah, I think 48 is fine. I just need a letter P and a letter T, so I'll do the T beside it, and I think this is good. I'm not even going to sweat on this, so I'll hold on Shift and click the background and the text. And what I'm going to do is we can actually move this slightly towards the center, like so. It doesn't have to be perfect, so I'll hold on Control, press Ctrl G to group this, and I'll call this the text. Right, so I'm using Substance Painter, that's the software, and I'll just place it right here. So create a rusty smart material. So the word rusty is in rust, has some rust on it. This is a smart material, and this is the software we used, and this is the output. So I think this is a good blend. So what I'm going to do next is to add a group, and I'll add a levels node to control the lighting of this group. So I'll click on this group, Shift select this group, press Ctrl G to group these. I'll call them all. Right, so call them all, and what we're going to do next is head over to this adjustment layer and click on the levels adjustment. So basically what's happening is any level change I'm going to make is only going to affect the content in this group, and it's going to leave my PT group alone. So for the levels, I'm going to pay attention to my little navigator view right here. In fact, I'll just make it slightly big so I can see the overall output. So I'll just drag this right here, and this is adding some nice little contrast. I believe it's slightly too dark, so this is before and this is after. And for the white level, I'll just push the white level up a little bit just to make this kind of like stand out. And for the output white, I'm going to just dim this a bit, and for the output black, I'm just going to push this a bit like so. Now for my effects, I kind of like noticed they're still kind of bright, so I'll just go over here, and where I have the bottom halo, I'll just minimize that, the opacity, just drag that down a little bit. Yeah, I think that's super fine. So with everything done, so like I said, if I turn off the levels, we can actually see what it's doing right now. Let's turn that off. It's off, it's on. Not much change, but it's actually subtle and it's not affecting our group here. If I should put this in the group, it's going to try to like mask this. So this is now being affected. The color is being affected as well. I think it's not bad, so I'll just leave it here. And finally, to export this, I'll just click on this and go to File, Save, which is the first thing I was supposed to do, is save my project. So I'll just call this Rust to YouTube thumbnail. And I'll click Save. And then I'll go to File, Export. And I'm going to export the entire document. If you want to export a specific section of the document, we can use the whole document. But I'm just going to, if we have a selection, we can say selection only. But I'm going to export the whole document. So right here, I'm going to say export, set it to PNG and click export. And this is going to say Rust to YouTube thumbnail, save. And also what I want to do is to just export this, the painter effects, the create a Rusty smart material. So I'll export that separately and take that to Camtasia. So I'll show you how you can export only an object you select. So I'll deselect everything and make sure this is selected. I'm deselecting this effect as well, and I'm going to make this straight. So I've selected only this, so I'm just going to say File, Export. Here I'll say Selection Only. So this is a 338 by 338 pixel, and I'll just go to Export, and I'll just call that painter underscore logo. Adobe shouldn't come after me. So here I'm also going to export only the text. So what I'll do is to let's get rid of this, and we can actually see what's happening here. So I have my text layer and the effects. So what's happening is that I have a dark background, so it's not making this look, because of the dark background, it's helping this text. But anyway, I'll still export it and see how it's going to look when I import it to the software I'm using, Camtasia. So I'll select this only. So I'll go to File, Export, Selection Only, and I'll click on Export, and I'll just call this text. So now I have this export. I'll just bring everything back on and kind of like close the layer and save this. Okay, I have this Rust layer open. I believe it's called grab 2. I don't need it, so I'll just delete it so that it doesn't cause a problem next time. And I'll go ahead and save this. So basically, if I go to Camtasia right now, I can import media, and I'll go over to where I just created this. So it's in the document D, Substance Projects, Painter, Rust 2, and this text. So I'll click on this to open this text and just drag this and drop it in the scene. Kind of like zoom in a little bit and drag the slider to make sure I'm close to the start of the scene. And I'll just drag this over here and reset this. Yeah, I think it's still readable, so this is awesome. This is nice. So this is still readable, so I'll just leave it here. What I can do here in Camtasia is to add a little text effect. So I'll go to Transitions, and I'll make sure not to use Record System Audio. So okay, I'm recording, sorry. So it's we're gonna hear some what I'll do is to just silence the audio so that we don't see that playing, so that when I add this effect it doesn't disturb everyone. So here what I'll do is to click on slide left, and once it's done, okay, I clicked on slide right, so once it's done I'll click on slide left, and let's just play this and see. So create a Rusty smart material, and this is going to go away. So I also want to bring the Painter logo as well, so I import this, import the Painter logo, and just drag this and drop this here. So this is going to be here. This is going to start up just to show the software I'm using. And for this, I'll just click on the transitions and click on ripple, and I'll click play. So create a rusty smart material, and this object is blocking out text. So let's try that again. So I'll hit play, and this is it. So create a rusty smart material, and this is going to slide out, and I want it to ripple out. So I'll click the ripple just here at the output and go back and hit play. So create a rusty smart material, and it's just going to ripple out and disappear, and that's good. So hopefully this was helpful and you've understood, even if it's one thing, about Affinity Designer. Sorry, this is super long, but I just wanted to make a tutorial to show how I create thumbs, and so when I upload this video on YouTube, it's going to stand out. At least the thumbnails are going to stand out because we had a very nice little effect on this. So thank you very much for watching. I'll see you in the next Affinity Designer quick tip.